Hello, hello, hello. Happy Sunday. Hello, good afternoon to you as well, sweetheart. How are you, my loves? Happy Sunday. Happy July 14th. How is it that we've already gotten to the 14th day of July when it feels like July 1st just happened yesterday? I don't know, but I'm happy to be counted in the number. Um, we're going to talk about barriers today, but before we get to any of that, let us talk about all of the things that are flowing freely in our lives, like love. I am in love with you guys. My name is Coach Yolanda. I'm an international spiritual life coach, owner of Evolving Spirit Wellness. I am a certified spiritual life coach. I am a certified birth doula. I am a Reiki master, teacher, mama, grandmama, and all of the good and wonderful things that I get to call myself. And hopefully, one of them is spiritual friend. Not just friend, but spiritual friend. I consider all of you my spiritual friends. Like, who do you like to be with on Sunday? My spiritual friends. And so I'm excited for today. I'm excited for tomorrow. I'm excited for all of the opportunities that I get to express myself in all of the many ways that I get to do that. We are, of course, in the midst of Power24 this year. We are looking at our own personal power, how we express it, how we connect with it, and are we standing on it? Are you operating from a place of power, or are you operating from other places that would be absolutely understandable? Because in this human experience, there are so many different things that we get to be and that we get to see and hear. So, of course, there are other ways to express yourself. And some of them may not feel powerful, but I am here to support you and to support myself in living from a place of power. And so, as we have been moving forward and talking about all of the different ways that power shows up in our life, I hope, I pray, I trust that it's a constant reminder to you that it's not something that you do, it's not something that you buy, it's not something that someone else can give or take away. It is something that you embody. And as we continue to embody the power that is within us and identify it and acknowledge it in other people, let us not forget that it's not the only thing that makes us us. Hey there, Celeste. Oh, Celeste, last week you shared a good word about archetypes. I said I thought I felt like I play the role of a bridge. You said the cleanup woman, and I mentioned a book, and I couldn't think of the book. This is the book. It's called "This Is Woman's Work" by Dominique Christina. I don't know if you guys. There you go, Dominique Christina. I was blown away by the cover art. First of all, if you are familiar with, I believe it's Charles Bibb is the artist of this work. But boy, what's inside is also some good stuff. It talks about different female archetypes that we may identify with. So for anyone who is in the midst of transformation, particularly for Black women, because this is written from the perspective of a Black woman. If you are looking for ways to give yourself language for some of the experiences that you've had, this might be a good book for you. Let me see how many archetypes she gives in this work. She is also a spoken word artist, a poet. And so many of every chapter starts with a different poem. And I love the fact that she uses different mediums to express what she means by the different archetypes. There's 20 different archetypes. I'll just mention some of them, and it may resonate with you. The shadow woman, the ghost woman, the willing woman, the rebel woman, the conjure woman, the shapeshifter woman, the warrior woman, all of these different archetypes. It's not to say that we are only one. We could be all of them. but it gives you a language. And I think for any coach, such as myself, or anyone who intends to facilitate transformation and change, one of the ways in which we can do that best is by offering examples. Because sometimes we know what it is, but we might not have the language to express it. But by reading particular things like this, and also the other book that I mentioned, Sacred Contracts by Caroline Mace, you may see yourself. And I think that's what good works of literature do. You see yourself within the work. It gives you a vocabulary that you may not have had on your own. And now you feel seen, you feel heard, and you feel better equipped to express yourself. And so I offer, if you are in the market for looking for different things to read, that is also a very good read. Um, I am glad to hear that you are doing well. Let's check in with others. How are we feeling? Yes, don't you like that? Spiritual friends. Happy Sunday, Miss Erica. How are you? It really is a good read, and it makes me proud to be a woman. It makes me specifically proud to be a Black woman and to understand the experiences. When you can have a conversation with someone and they're talking about something that you thought you were the only one that did it, or, had that perspective, it feels you feel seen, you feel heard. And I think that's part of the human condition that we all desire: to feel seen, to be heard, to be accepted, whether we say it or not. I think that is the function of being a human. Connection. It's connection. So today we're going to talk about what happens when there is no connection. We're going to talk about breaking barriers. What do barriers look like? What do they feel like? If you have your notebook and your pen with you, I would ask that, similar to last week, you start to write and then continue the exercise as you feel led as we move through. Um, One of my spiritual friends reminded me of a practice that I engage in before I do spiritual work that I don't always offer to you guys, and that's breathing. And so let's take some deep breaths. We, of course, do that before we meditate. But before we switch gears into our discussion today, let's center and ground ourselves by taking some deep breaths and engaging in that practice, even in our daily activities, just breathing, even if it's 3 deep breaths, 3 deep cleansing breaths, allows your brain to get the oxygen that it needs. It allows your body, your blood, to get the oxygen that it needs to be prepared, to be focused, to be attentive. Sometimes we hold our breath and we don't even realize that we are holding our breath. Sometimes we are breathing rapidly and we don't connect to that. So in this moment, let's take some deep breaths, when whatever pace feels good for you, so that we can transition into talking about barriers. Because for some of us, it may trigger some stuff. To know that one of the biggest barriers to the thing that you desire is you yourself can be a very triggering thing to acknowledge. And so we want to prepare ourselves by breathing. I also want to mention that today I'm wearing my big ask shirt. Let me tilt the camera. I got mine. I don't know if y'all got yours. I unapologetically have a big ask, and we're going to talk about that later too. Um, we are definitely going to jump into that too. So barriers. I don't know that I have a single definition for barrier. I know when I hear it, barrier, I ultimately think of a gate. I think of something that separates two things, whether that those two things initially were one thing and now there's a barrier that has split them into, or whether it's keeping one experience from another experience. I ultimately, when I think of barrier, I think of gate, I think of a wall, I think of, this. This is a barrier, stopping something from happening. And as we are talking about visioning, if we're talking about our power, and earlier in this year, we talked about getting really clear on those things that are currently in our lives that seem to be taking our power or have our attention and focus the most. We did it in the physical, the spiritual, the mental, and emotional arenas of our lives. Like, where is your power going? A barrier could also be something that controls the flow of energy. If you think about the sandbags that individuals have to put up if water is attempting to go into places where it doesn't belong, and so we get the sandbags out, that creates a barrier, not necessarily, but we know that thing is coming, but we want to go it in a particular area. So that can also be a barrier. So we all have power. We all have the energy of power flowing through us. And there are particular things in our lives that get the majority of our power based upon our thoughts, our feelings, our behavior, things that are going on in your life. If you are faced with a physical illness or condition, the bulk of your energy, your power might be being funneled into that particular area of your life. So you can't focus on, having fun with your friends or going out to dinner. Like, those things are not a priority, because what energy you do have has to go to something else. And so, as we have started that process in the beginning of the year, looking at where our power goes, and then we started talking about last week setting goals. And how do you do that? What does goal setting look like? We know what SMART goals are, and we have reached this big age because we have become or have created a way of setting a goal, making sure there are actions to go with the goal so that the goal can be realized. But when we're talking about visioning, and creating and crafting a vision for ourselves, we have to acknowledge that there are particular things that keep us in resistance, that keep us or prevent us from focusing on those things that we desire to focus on. We are not going to talk about the barriers that exist in everyday life, because those may or may not be things that you can control, such as where you live. Like, if you live in a particular area where it is difficult or challenging to get fresh food, that's a barrier. And it may be a barrier that you can't necessarily do something about single handedly. Those are not the barriers that we're talking about. The barriers that we are going to be focusing on as we are creating a vision for our lives are the ones that we are in full control over. And that's why I said earlier, it can be triggering, because that means that's internal work. What are the internal barriers? The things that are going on physically, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally that seem to be a barrier from you starting something, from you finishing something, or for you even keeping it and sustaining it and believing that it is something that can be done. And so I am of the mindset that if you change your language, you change your life. Change your perspective and the way that you see things, you can change your reality. I could not be a coach if I did not believe that. If I did not believe in the power of words, in the power of thought, in the power of core beliefs that we all must hold. We have to acknowledge when we are stuck in a belief system that really is a barrier. And so, one of the first things that I would offer to all of us is that we change the language from barrier to requirement. Because maybe there are some things that are required of you that you are looking at as a barrier. For instance, grandbaby girl's birthday party was yesterday. But I was in charge of the desserts, the cupcakes. We decided to do cupcakes instead of the birthday cake. So I got the cupcakes, I decorated the cupcakes, da 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 da. Um, why they put the lady who is trying to manage her diet and is a diabetic in charge of the cupcakes, I don't know. Because it got to the point where the cupcakes were in charge of me. And so while I will do anything for my granddaughter, what I could have offered, because I know my weaknesses or I know what my requirements are, I could have said, you know what, let me be in charge of something else, or there may be something else that I could manage. Because you putting me in charge of the sweets is like letting the fox watch the hen house. And trust and believe, I think I only had 3 or 4 of those cupcakes today. And I say that knowing that my health coach is watching right now. Um, but if we are going to talk about barriers, if we're going to talk about the things that we know are required of us, then we have to tell the truth. So if we change the language from barrier, because my me having diabetes, me having health challenges, if I look at them as a barrier, I'm going to be fighting them. I'm going to be fighting, fighting, fighting. I'm going to be looking at it as something that I have to fight and win. Or I might be telling myself, this thing is bigger than me. This is something that has been in my family history for so long. Who am I to be the one to change the course of how, diabetes runs in my who am I? Like, I could look at it that way and look at it as this huge barrier, or I could look at it like this is a requirement of my life. If I want my life to be a particular way, if I want to be in a particular state of health and wellness, then it is required. It is required of me to do particular things for my highest good so that I am well. But of course, I may not look at it that way. And I certainly remember members of my family not looking at it that way, which is why they were all non compliant when it came to their diet in terms of dealing and managing diabetes, because it was looked upon as a barrier. It was looked upon as punishment. It was looked upon as some affliction instead of this is a state of being that your body is in. So it requires you to do particular things. For individuals who, are in renal kidney failure and are required to go through dialysis, it's like, if you don't do this thing, you will not live. It's a requirement. But if you look at it as a barrier and it looks at something that's impacting your life in such a way that it's such a horrible thing, you're going to fight that thing. Instead of, you know what, I'm going to do this thing because I'm required to do it and it's going to keep me alive so that I have more days to live. And so today we are talking about breaking barriers of our mind, our perspective, how we see things. And so let me see if I can share what we started last week. Let me see if I have it up. I don't think I have it up. I do have it up. Is that it? Is this it? Yeah, get out of here. Okay, so get out of here. All right, so last week, and I know that some of you were following along, this is where we started. So for me, I said one of my goals. Now, this is not the SMART way, the acronym SMART way. This is spiritual visioning. And for me, expanding my work to contribute to the growth of the collective consciousness was my goal. And then I started to engage in the why, because you need to know, what is your motivation? What is your inspiration? What is the fuel that is going to keep you going when life starts to look very different from the thing that you envision? So if you have a vision of doing a particular thing and right now the reality of your life looks so far away from that vision, then you're going to have to know what your why is to push you through. And so we went through the bullet points because those all indicate another question. You need to know why. I'm not at the point yet where I'm invested in knowing what it looks like, who's going to be there, how they're going to show up, where's the money coming from. I need to know what's connected to my heart. I need to know why this goal is connected to my heart, because whatever is connected to my heart is not something that I'm willing to let go. And it's not something that I can maybe even live without. And I know because I've tried. When I told myself I was going to take a break from coaching and I'm not going to do this and I'm not doing this, It's not who I am. It's what I love to do because it's connected to my heart, because I recognize and realize what it has done for me. And that is what I would offer back to the universe. And so, breaking down my why, to give back what I've received, because I also desired continue healing. We went through all of that, and it got me to that one red bullet point. It was like, it allows me to walk through this experience with confidence. Oh, really, Yolanda? Because you think you don't have it? Yes, because my mind, which can be a barrier, will sometimes tell me that I don't have wisdom and I don't have confidence. My barrier will also sound very loud and say, you know what to do, but you're choosing not to do it because you're afraid. Or I have that barrier being a people pleaser. So my mind will sometimes say, give it to everybody else, don't provide it to yourself because you don't deserve it. And so that's why that bullet point is in red, because I recognize that as I'm going through an exercise, I'm uncovering some unhealed belief, some perspective that lives in me on a day to day basis that I have to do the work to break down this barrier. This is one of my barriers. Child, there are several, but this is one of them, lacking confidence and thinking that I don't have any wisdom. And so I take those very two things and place them into my vision, because that is going to be the motivation. That's going to be the healing point. That's going to be the place that I go to. Because right now it's the place that I go to hurt myself. I also want it to be the place that I go to heal myself. So wisdom and confidence allow me to expand my work to contribute to the growth of the collective consciousness. And someone could see that and be like, oh, great work. We're not done. This is not finished. And so this is a statement that I wrote based upon some of that work. My heart, because I said it's connected to my heart. My heart. So if anybody were to ask me, well, why do you do what you do? I could say this sentence. My heart is centered on work that expands the growth of the collective consciousness by imparting spiritual wisdom with divine confidence to experience healing personally and professionally. Now, if you were to ask me, I'm not a business coach, but if you were to ask me to help you develop an elevator pitch, or I don't know that I could do that, but if you were to ask me to help you develop a spiritual intention and vision, I'm your girl. And so this is what this particular goal sounds like for me. But we are not done, because I recognize, as lovely and as beautiful as this sounds, there's a reason why I believe, or I think, that it is not happening now, because that can absolutely be a barrier. It may not be the only barrier, but for many of us, when we say, I'm stuck, I'm lacking clarity, I'm confused, I'm in resistance, I don't know why I just can't seem to make this thing work, it's based upon what you believe. So a barrier can be what I believe is preventing the intention from being my reality right now. So this lovely statement that I made, somewhere within me, there is a barrier that may be contributing to me not believing that it is happening. And what is the first thing that I wrote? What's the barrier? Not acknowledging that I already do and have done just this. And I put duh, because Yolanda, what makes you think this statement right here isn't already happening, or hasn't already happened? So I will say to each and every single one of you, there may be a thought that what you are attempting to do is new, or that you haven't done it. But I guarantee you, on some level, you already have. It may not look the way that you would want it to look, so that you can say, yes, this is the goal, this is the vision, and I'm living it right now. But you've already done it. I would bet the farm on it. I don't even have a farm. Although, side note, my corn is looking nice. I'm going to take some pictures of it and maybe share it with you next week. I guarantee you that the thing that you desire, the thing that is connected to your heart, has already been happening on some level in your life, and you may not be acknowledging it. And so for me, one of the barriers is me telling myself that I'm not already doing it, or that I need something else in order for it to be done. That is also a common thought, that who I am or who we are in this right now moment is not enough. And there's something else that we need to get before that thing would happen. Now, there are some times that that is true. Like if I said I wanted a brick and mortar business, well, right now I don't have a brick and I ain't got no mortar. You know, there isn't a identifiable place or building that I own, stay with me, that I own, that I could say reflects what I envision. However, I am in my home talking to y'all right now. So, in many ways, I do have a brick and mortar. I do have a brick and mortar business. I'm sitting in it and I pay for the lights and, you know, that and the internet. In order for me to be able to do this on Sundays, I do have a brick and mortar place that allows me to do the thing that I say I want to do. So that's a mindset change, a perspective change. So for those of you who like, well, I wrote my vision and I'm not living it right now. Ask yourself, is this 100% true? Or am I doing this in a way that I may not have been consciously aware of? So let's say your goal is to, I think last week I used own a Starbucks, to own a Starbucks. And you could say, well, I don't own a Starbucks right now. But you probably use their products. You probably go to Starbucks. You probably could order off the menu like a champ. So, based upon that perspective, there is a part of you that knows a lot about that business. You use the product. You know what the ordering, you even know what things could be tweaked and changed. Because how many of us have gone into an establishment and said, if I own this place, this is how I would do it, or I would implement this. Like, this does not make sense to me. If I were the owner of this particular business, I would implement or do something different. So change your perspective about what is currently going on. It may not look like the final vision, but there's some part of you, because it's connected to your heart, there's some part of you that is already doing or are in the process of doing right now. So that was the one of the barriers that I have to think about. One of the other barriers for me is being defiant to the work. I'm rebellious. When it comes to the requirements, not the barriers, the requirements of expanding my work, I can be rebellious. I know what's required for me to do what it is that I would like to do. I don't always want to do it. Now I'm going to pause and stop sharing for a minute to see how we're feeling about that. Is this resonating with anyone? Is anyone like, ooh, I see myself in that? I say I want this thing. I say I want these things to happen, and yet I'm not taking any action. I'm being rebellious to the very thing that is required of me. So if you have a goal, if you have a vision, if there's something in your life that you say that you want, is there any evidence that you are participating in one of the requirements for that vision, that goal? Or are you too being rebellious? And I don't want to make it sound like I am folding my arms and being a brat and I don't want to do it. Rebellious or rebellion to me can look like I'm going to watch TV instead of put my content online like I say I want to do. Or I'm going to choose to do something that's not aligned with my vision or my goal. That's discipline, right? We talked about that. That's rebellion. You said you wanted this thing. I said I wanted this thing. And yet I'm choosing to do other things, or I'm choosing to tell myself, Yeah, well, I need something else before. Be very, very honest with yourself that if there is a mental barrier, emotional barrier, it could be heartbreaking. Even if the goal is, I want to, lose some weight, and you're doing all of these things. I may have shared with y'all that years ago when I really wanted to lose weight, I was walking every single morning at 5 a.m. I did that for 4 months and my weight never changed. And so I was so discouraged that I was like, I'm not doing it anymore. Why get up and walk to the track and in the cold and in the rain? Like, I was dedicated. Like, I felt like I put myself into that space where I should have seen the change that I wanted to see, and I didn't see it. Not recognizing the strengthening of my body that was happening that had nothing to do with weight. Not recognizing the endurance that I was building up that had nothing to do with weight. My mind was so fixed on it's got to look like this, and if it don't look like this, then it's not happening. I just had a conversation with one of my children about that. I said, just because it's not happening where you can see it doesn't mean it's not happening. Just because you're not privy to conversations doesn't mean those conversations aren't happening. So when we don't see things, sometimes we get rebellious and we say, well, why would I do all of this work if nothing's happening? There is always, always, always something happening. And if you are stepping toward your vision, your goal, as they say, the universe is like, okay, and I'm going to meet you there every step of the way, even when it doesn't look like that's what is happening. You have to have the mindset, the perspective that what I am contributing to is supporting my vision. And so when we get in those rebellious moods, when we take the vision and put it on a shelf, because it can be heartbreaking, and I don't want to dismiss anyone's experience, vision creation can be heartbreaking when you feel like you are putting forth an effort and you're not seeing results, or you're not garnering the outcome that you desire. For those of us who are working on relationships and you want to see your relationship in a particular way, and you feel like, I'm doing everything that I think that I can do, but I'm not seeing anything. And as my good, loving prayer partner says, well, at what point do I stop? At what point do I do something else because this is not working? If it is connected to your heart, then you have to ask yourself that question. And that is why we journal. That is why we meditate. That's why we engage in spiritual practices, so that we can stay connected to trusting ourselves to know. Trust yourself enough to know when it's time to walk away, because you will know. But if you are only going based upon, I'm not seeing what I want, therefore I'm just going to abandon the whole thing, you are going to get into a cycle of starting things and not finishing, starting things and not seeing the end, starting things and moving from thing to thing to thing, thinking if I move all of these parts and pieces, then it's going to become a reality. Instead of, my heart is so connected to this, I will know when it's time to move and when it's time to be still. Hey, Miss Maya. Good afternoon to you as well. You will know. And so think about, and one of the other things I had to tell the truth about is we have to know what our temper tantrums look like. We all have them. We came into the world, and that was one of our first languages. Temper tantrums. When little kids are having a temper tantrum, it's because they don't have the language to express what's going on for them. They can't always say, I'm hungry, I'm tired, I don't want to play, I don't want you in my face. It's too cold in here. It's too hot in here. These clothes are too itchy. Children don't always have the language to express their experiences. And so what happens? They have a meltdown, they have a temper tantrum, because that is the language that we all came here with. The very first communication you had when you were born that everyone was looking for was a cry, right? When babies are born into the world, we want them to cry because it clears out the lungs, and it also indicates that things are operating in a way that they should. This being should be responding to the experience that they just went through, being in the womb for hopefully 9 months to now being in another experience, and that should elicit a response. And so our very first language is crying. We don't come into this world laughing. We don't come into this world expressing, whoa, it was so tight up in there. I'm so glad to be. We don't do that. We come into this world with a cry. And so you have to know that even at the age that you are, so even for me at 53, I still have tantrums. When I don't have the language, when I don't feel seen, feel hurt, when something is going on that's uncomfortable that I'm not able to identify, I have a tantrum. And so when things in my life are not going the way that I want them to go, I have a tantrum. And my tantrums tend to look like rebellion. Oh, you're not doing what I want you to do? Well, then I don't want to play with you anymore. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I want to shut down. I want to isolate. I want to project and say that it's everyone else's fault why this thing is not working. Or I want to go internal and say, you're not enough. You're not smart enough. You're not confident enough. You don't have enough money. You're not, it's just not you. It's everybody else but you. So you have to be at a level of self awareness where you know what your tantrum looks like. What does your tantrum look like? What happens when you're not getting your way? Because we all have one. And if you are not clear about what it is, you might ignore it and think that it's everyone else. I was having a conversation with someone about negativity and how there are people, God bless them, in our lives who are so used to things not going well that the core belief of negativity runs rampant. Everything is a disaster. Everything is a problem. And they can't wait to share it. It's like, you don't have anything good that you want to share with me. Everything is negative. Everything is, oh my God, look at that. Oh my God, everything is not only the negative things going on in their lives, but they want to point out the negativity in everybody else's life. And that can happen when you have an experience of either not being self-aware that there is not just one experience to have in this life, or that you've had a series of negative things happen in your life. So that's what you tend to put your time, your attention, and your focus on. And that could be you in tantrum mode. That could be you being rebellious because things are not the way that you desire them to be. So it must be everyone else's fault because that has been true for you in the past. And if it's been true for you in the past, it might then become a core belief that if things are not going well, it has to be someone else's fault or some fault of my own. That might be your perspective. And I am here to acknowledge that when things don't go my way and I am in a rebellious state of being, I'm not thinking about visioning. I'm not thinking about what's for my best. I'm thinking I would like another cupcake. I'm thinking I would really like to go eat some fried foods. I'm thinking I want to do something that's, going to speak to those parts of me that are unhealed and hurt and require some attention. But I'm not at the place where I'm willing to take some healings. I want what I want. If I'm not in control in particular places in my life, then I want to feel like I can have some control in the way that I want to have it. Like I know what my tantrums look like. Now, not all of them. Sometimes I can be in the throes of something and not be consciously aware that that's what's going on. But when you continuously work on your personal development and a level of self awareness, you'll know. You will know when you're in full tantrum mode, and you have to be honest enough with yourself to say, girl, get it together. Get it together. This is a moment in time. Just a moment in time, and this too shall pass. I used to write that on my journals in the front. This too shall pass. Because I needed that as a reminder that the moments that I was having were not going to be etched in stone forever. It's just a moment. This is just a moment. Okay. So let me go back to sharing because I just wanted to see if anybody had a comment and anyone was like, oh gosh, are you talking to me? Are you talking about me and what I just experienced? How people are being unfair to me? And not saying that they can't be, because people can be unfair. But the question really is, am I being unfair to myself in such a way that it's creating a barrier in my mind? Okay. So just to recap, this is the work that I did last week and that I'm continuously doing. Now, these, what, 4 or 5 little bullet points are not, I could come back to this 2 weeks from now and all of these bullet points of why could be different. Any one of us could do this numerous times and come up with numerous, and I'm not suggesting that you do. I'm suggesting that you do it until you have an aha moment where you're like, oh my gosh, this is it. You might do this and not feel anything. You're just going through the motions, writing stuff down, going through the motions, writing stuff down. My hope and my desire is that if you are engaging in this kind of self exploration, that it's for a purpose. That you are using this information to support you in tapping into your power, connecting to your power, and writing things that feel like I will stand on this. If anyone asks me, why do you do what you do? Or what is it that you do? Or you ask yourself, if someone asks me to do something, I can go right to this statement and say, is this request centered on work that expands the collective consciousness? Will I be able to impart my spiritual wisdom with divine confidence in this experience? And if the answer is no, then I can say, no, thank you. That's not work that I want to do, because my heart is connected to and centered on work that expands the growth. Words are important. So if you're asking me to do something and it's not for the expansion and growth of the collective consciousness, my answer is going to be no, because that's not my goal and that's not my vision. Even if it sounds like something fun, you might ask me to do something. I'm like, well, that sounds fun, but it also seems like it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of attention, a lot of focus, a lot of work, a lot of commitment. And all of those things for me right now in my life are reserved for this, for my vision, for my goal. And that's one of the things that I'm also working through. As I'm supporting people, their goals, how am I supporting myself? If I get the least of me, how am I supporting my visions, my goals, which could also be a barrier? And we're going to get there. So one of the other things, stinking thinking. That stinking thinking. Like I had a moment 2 weeks ago where I was like, throw all of these books away. You are not a spiritual life coach. Just go be Yolanda somewhere. Bah, 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 bah. The mental distractions. And I want to clarify that for myself and perhaps for you, that mental distractions are opportunities to steal your dream and your vision. When we make choices to distract ourselves mentally because something is challenging difficult. We don't want to address it. And for me, I can tell you right now, one of those things is my taxes. Ugh, I hate it. I can't stand it. And I know that that is language that I need to transform so that I don't see it in that perspective. And so anytime a conversation about taxes comes up, I will find a mental distraction. And that is an opportunity to steal the vision because it's one of the requirements. Now I'm looking at the taxes as a barrier. Look, it's a requirement. If you want to be in business, if you want your money to be right as a citizen of these United States, if you continue to be one, you may not, or you may have dual citizenship. And so this may not be reflective of your experience. Taxes are a requirement. Business taxes are a requirement. Your personal taxes are a requirement. And it's something that you have to be mindful of. So if I change my perspective to say taxes is not a barrier, it's a requirement. And do I love that thing that I do enough that I will meet this requirement? Absolutely. So it's not even an inconvenience. I'm not even going to look at it that way. This is something that is required of me in order to live out my dream. So let me get about the business of doing it. Stop complaining about it. Stop projecting it. Stop talking. Now, if there is something about the process that I don't like, then I also have ways in which I can change that. I could run for office. I could talk to my Congress people. I could do, make my voice known to say, hey, I don't like this process. I don't like the way. I don't know how far it's going to get me, but at least I can feel like I'm contributing to changing things that I may think that are unfair. I don't get to just tap out and say, I don't want to be bothered with it. I don't want to deal with it. The other way that I could deal with it is pay somebody to deal with it. If I really don't want to be involved in the process, but I know it's a requirement, then let me pay somebody else to take that headache off my mind. So that stinking thinking and those mental distractions, those are opportunities for your dream to be stolen, for your vision to not be realized. And we all have to think about what are the mental distractions. Now, I have worked with clients long enough to tell you that I think that one of the number one mental distractions that keep people from living from a place of power or working on their vision is family. Your family can create drama that then becomes a mental distraction for you. You're over here trying to build a life. I'm going to stop sharing so we can have this conversation. You're over here trying to build a life for yourself. Natasha, hey, professor. You're over here trying to build a life for yourself, and here come your auntie, your cousins, your mama, your kids, your sister, your brother, your nieces, nephews, your family. Got so much going on that you can't focus on you because you got to focus on fixing them. Everyone take a breath. We love our families, but we also have to tell the truth when they are a mental, sometimes they are physical, sometimes they're an emotional, sometimes they're all four. They are just a distraction. Doesn't mean you don't love them. Doesn't mean that they don't mean well. But sometimes patterns get created in families that are hard to change, to transform, to break until someone says, I've had enough. You might be the savior in your family where everything is falling apart and here you come to save the day. You might be the protector in your family where someone's being taken advantage of and here you come to be the protector. You might be the lawyer in your family where somebody's in trouble and somehow you have managed to live this long life without getting in trouble. So they somehow think you got a secret. You have some kind of secret that no one else has. It's like, you know what? Niecy ain't never been in trouble. Let's go ask her. to be the lawyer. Michelle ain't never has never had an addiction. What does she do that we didn't do? Let's go ask her. You might play that role in your family, and you have to tell yourself and be honest. This is a mental distraction that I'm tired. That every time you seem to get going, there's a knock on the door, there's a call, a text message. Hey, you busy? Um, can I talk to you real quick? You already know there are particular people in your family that when you hear from them. Here we go. Here we go. If you are prepared to live from a place of power, you also have to be prepared to disrupt particular cycles. And it may not just be your family, it could be your friend group. Someone who's like a sister, someone who's like a brother, someone who's like an auntie, someone who's like a mother, someone who's like a father. If you have the experience that there always seems to be these family breakdowns right when you are ready to focus on you, I want you to take a breath. I want you to take a piece of paper. I want you to put it in your journal and write about how that makes you feel. Because we may think that it is a barrier that we can't do anything about. But the only behavior that you can control is your own. The only response that you can predict is your own. The only thoughts, the only emotions, all your own. And you may have to stop looking at your family as a barrier and start looking at yourself as an enabler to that type of behavior. And so I would like all of us to change our language from barrier to boundary. Boundary is actually a very spiritual experience. Boundaries are good. They are loving. We tend to think of boundaries as this, when a boundary is actually this, but like this. It's a filtration system. Look at it that way. All of us, every single one of us needs water to live. There are things that live in water that could kill us. So if there's not a filtration system and that stuff gets into our bodies, the very thing that we need to live could be the very thing that kills us, right? So what do? We implement a filtration system. We intervene with a boundary that says this thing, I really do need it, but not all of it. So I got to filter out the things that I don't need. I got to filter out the things that are toxic. So a boundary is your filtration system. And so sometimes people either don't have them at all, and so you're letting in all the junk, or you don't honor the filtration system that you've put in place, so people keep getting around it. And so part of you living your life from a place of power means you got to have a strong no, you got to have a strong filtration system. You have to change what you might identify as a barrier and look at it as, no, this is a place that I need a boundary. This is a place that I need a filtration system. My mother cannot call me anytime she wants and disrupt my life just because she's my mother. I recognize the privilege that I have in saying that because my mother is no longer living. I love that lady from sun up to sundown. But there were times, and I remember having a coming to Jesus moment with my mother when I said to her, when you don't take care of your health, that then becomes my responsibility. So I can't do the things that I need to do for my own family. Because there was an experience we were having where I'm trying to do things with my children, but I got to stop, take her to the hospital, go to the doctor's appointments because you refuse to take care of your health. It impacts me in such a way that now my family doesn't get me fully. And so, yeah, I had to put a filtration system in. Now, I do want to acknowledge and recognize that for some of us, that's a far gone experience. We may be caregivers for individuals who can no longer make choices and decisions about their health. So, I am not suggesting that your mother, who is experiencing the need for a level of health care, where you're just like, well, I got my own stuff going on, mom. So you got to figure out how you going to. No, I'm not saying that. But you will know. You know. I know you know. And it also may feel like a betrayal for you to even say it. And I'm not saying to call your mama and say, I need to put a filtration system in place because you just don't honor my boundaries. I'm saying that you have to acknowledge for yourself. I have allowed other people to distract me or to become a mental distraction so that I can't work on myself. I can't, and this is not the only mental distraction, but I know it's a big one because I'm telling you what I have seen and experienced both personally and professionally. When I sit down one on one, start working with individuals, and I'm like, well, why do you think that that hasn't happened? There's a breath, and it's like, well, my brother is having some difficulties. And so he's now living with me. And so that makes it difficult for me to, put my money into this thing because I'm taking care of the both of us. And it's like, okay, that's a choice. That was a decision. How do you feel about it? And it's always, well, he's my brother. Like there's never an actual feeling. I'm asking, well, how does it feel that you have to take care? You are the caregiver or you are responsible for another adult. How does it feel? We don't get there initially. Um, we come to it, but at some point, it's typically, well, that's my mom. How does it feel that you have to address everyone else's concerns and issues before you address your own? Or people look at you, and we just had a conversation about this in my living room. People look at you not as a human, not as a person that has needs and wants, but as an ATM or a problem solver and a fixer. Let me call up so and so because I know that she will fix it. Never ask, is this a good time for you? Is this going to impact you? Is this going to take you away from something that you were doing? Just, well, you're my sister. You're my mother. Or I do it for you if it were me, or I have done it for whatever the conversation is. I'm telling you, it happens more often than not. So if we're going to talk about breaking barriers, we got to talk about, yes, a filtration system has to be in place. So those mental distractions, and again, similar to the analogy of the water, we need water to live. We need our families to live. We don't want our people mad at us or feeling like you acting different. We don't want that. We don't want that headache. The cousins, everybody talking about you on the group chat because you said no to your mother. Why are you breaking your? Then everybody texting you. I can't believe you did that. I can't believe mental distractions are an opportunity to steal your dream. And it may sound like it's, deeper than you think, but it's really that deep. It is that deep because it can happen in increments where you're not even aware that I am always running to people's rescue. And who is there for me? Who who is checking? Who is supporting me? Here I've said I want to build this business. Who is helping me, supporting me in building this business? How many family members have used you as a referral to their friends, their family? Oh, you want a such and such? My sister does that. So be honest with yourself that if you have allowed your filtration system to break down or there's not one in place, change the language, change your life. It's not a barrier, it's a boundary, and boundaries are healthy. We have to have them with ourselves. I will admit that I'm not great in keeping my own boundaries. I'm better at keeping boundaries with the people on the outside than I am on keeping them with myself. And I recognize that that is something that I'm working on. So let me go right back one more time. I think this is the last time because I think I only have one more point. Why is it so difficult for me to find what I just left? Okay. So in order for me to now see these things differently, for me to have a different core belief so that I can set some healthy boundaries within myself, I first have to acknowledge I do this already. So this state that I wrote up here, anybody asks what I do, this is what I do. This is what I'm continuing to do. But here's what this exercise did for me. If you can see the last bullet, I am not focusing on the expansion, the growth, the possibility of my work. I'm so focused on what I think that I'm not doing it that I don't acknowledge that not only am I already doing it, but I'm not focusing on expanding. And that I think for me is a tricky little thing that I am doing to myself. I'm telling myself that it's about the work and but I'm already doing it. I'm not focusing on the expansion. So I went back up to the top. I underlined expanding. I went back in here on work that expands. I'm like, okay, what does the expansion look like? You're already doing it. How do you expand it? Look, I didn't write anything because I'm not there yet. Not there yet. But now that I'm clear on these mental barriers that I need to reflect on, the mind, my attitude, my perspective, my rebelliousness, the mental distractions, the stinking thinking. Now that I'm focused on that, I can go to the next step, which is the expansion. That's the part of that statement where I can put my time, my attention, and my focus because I am confident that I'm already doing that. Here I am creating a goal that already exists, but there's a part of that goal that's where I can put the action, the time, the function. So, how many of us who wrote down a goal recognize now I'm already doing this on some level, but I would like for it to look differently? So now you know where you need to put your focus, your time, your energy, but be mindful of the barriers that you think exist. Well, I don't have the right equipment. Use what you got until you can get some more. I can recall when I first started doing massage and I went and bought the table, bought a nice table. It's a very, very nice table, I might add, until I saw somebody else's table. And I'm like, huh, their table is better than my table. I can't do what it is that I want to do with my table. I've got to go get that table. Well, that table was $1,000. And for someone just starting out, purchasing $1,000 equipment didn't even sound fiscally responsible. And so I had to tell myself, girl, use what you have until you can get what you want. And so I never bought that $1,000 table because what I recognized and realized I could do what I needed to do with the table that I had, where I was telling myself I needed $1,000. I didn't need that $1,000. It was nice. I didn't need it in order to do what I did. It didn't prevent me from having repeat clients. It didn't prevent me from packing up that table, which is what the other table couldn't do, packing up that table, putting it in my car, and going to other places and spaces to massage. It didn't prevent me from doing anything, but my mindset was, I need to have that in order to do what it is that I want to do. So be very, very clear how your own mind can become the very barrier that you think exist externally. Because everyone that you might be watching and that you're inspired by had a start that does not look like where they are right now. And they may never show that to you. And they may even tell you, because I did all the hard work, I'm going to package it all up, sell it to you, and you can start from where I am right now. Don't you believe it? Or if you do believe it, how are you going to sustain it? If you never did the work to build up to that point, how are you going to know when something has gone wrong? It's like if I were to go in my kitchen, go under the sink, and take all of those pipes apart, and I didn't pay attention to the order in which those pipes were put, and then I wanted to put it all back together. It's like, well, I wasn't the initial builder. I'm not a plumber. I just took it apart. I don't know how to put it back together unless I study it, unless I take the time to recognize what is how it's set up. And so we have to do these deep dives. We got to do the work. And the work can seem time consuming. The work can seem like it's slowing your progress, but what it is teaching you something. And your perceived barriers will teach you something too. It'll teach you that you're playing a mind game on yourself, that you are holding a core belief and you are feeding that core belief that is really the reason why there is a perceived barrier to begin with. Sometimes we learn it based upon our developing and how we see things dealt with in our family structure. Sometimes we adopt it. We think if it was difficult for them, then it's going to be difficult for us, particularly when other people tell you, oh, you're a Black woman, it's going to be hard for you. Oh, you're a this, it's going to be hard. Everyone's experience is unique. What may be hard for one person may not be hard for you, but you'll never know that if you don't even step forth and try. Other times we develop these beliefs because we think it's protecting us. We think it's keeping us safe. And for me, that's part of being rebellious. When I don't get my way, I think if I rebel, that I'm keeping myself safe because that's what I did as a kid. That's what kids do. And we do it too in our own way. There's some rebellion probably going on within you, and you may not call it that. You're like, well, I'm not yelling at anyone and I don't have an attitude, but you might be casually telling yourself, well, I don't need to do that. This dream is not as deep as I thought it was. You might be gaslighting yourself into thinking, I didn't really want that. And the whole time it's eating away at you. But for some of us, we have learned that if I can't achieve the thing that I want, the way that I want, when I want, then I just abandon it altogether and then tell myself I never really wanted it. That's rebellious. I can remember doing that as a kid, wanting something, being told, no, you can't have it. I didn't really want it anyway. The whole time, just mad. But I don't want you to know that I'm mad that you said no. And I know that I do it to myself. And perhaps you are too. But don't let anything get an opportunity to steal your dream. Don't let anything, particularly your own mind. Do not let you be the reason why things are not unfolding in your life. Tell yourself the truth that I'm hurt, that things are not the way that I would like for them to go, that I feel like I've been trying. I feel like I've been putting my all into this and nothing is happening. We have to get to the point that we recognize and realize that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and there is always spiritual activity going on. You may not see it, you may not hear it, you may not even be privy to the details. Your entire human experience. You have no idea how things are moving in your favor. No idea of mountains being moved on your behalf. And here we are down here complaining. It's not happening. It's always happening, baby. You got to believe that. Because when you train your mind to believe that it is always happening, you start to move that way. You move with that level of authority. I know it's happening. I don't have to see it. That's what faith is. I know the universe is loving on me right now. I know all things are going to work according to my highest good. I know it. I believe it, and I move in that way. And if there is something that is attempting to distract me from thinking that, believing that, feeling that, then I need to identify it and filter it out of my life, because you are in the way of something great happening. And so something great is happening right now. I am telling you. You're like, well, I want to see it. I know you want to see it because you're human. I want to see it too. I want the proof to be in my mailbox like my bills are. On time every month. Here come another one. Here I want the proof of what I believe in, what I've prayed for, what I've requested. I want it too. And I recognize that the proof has to start here and here. Because if it doesn't, if your belief system is not created here and it's always dependent upon what is going on out there, what you kind of see instead of spiritually seeing, then you're going to always be led, like I said last week, like an animal on a leash. Like everyone is saying, oh, we are doomed. If that's what you believe, then that's going to be your experience. But if you also have faith and believe that I recognize that when harmful systems are being torn apart, it is never pretty, it is never nice, and it's never going to look the way that we think it's going to look. But things are being exposed for a reason. We are seeing ugliness for a reason. But if you're always thinking or having a core belief and it sounds like negativity, then baby, that's what you're going to see. That's what's going to be your experience. I just told my one of my little ones, if you keep thinking that, you're going to get what you think. You're going to get exactly what you're thinking. And you might say, well, I've talked positively before and it never happened. Trust and believe that if the thing that you desired to happen did not happen, it had to have been for your good. And you're like, there's no way. I was supposed to be born a millionaire and it didn't happen that way. We have no idea what our lives would look like if we actually got some of the things that we said that we wanted. Like I look at some of the relationships that I really wanted to work out. Whew, thank God they didn't. Because I see something that I didn't see back then. And some of the experiences that I am heartbroken that did not happen taught me something also. But I can't live my life with a series of regrets and anger and nothing ever works out for me, because if that is my perspective, then that will be my life. You're going to believe what you tell yourself. And if you tell yourself some negative things are going to be like, well, you called me. You called. That's what your time, your focus, and attention was on. So here I am, as desired, as wished, as requested. I saw a video yesterday, and I'm going to have to find it again because it was just a snippet, but that snippet was enough for me to hear. And I may have even shared it on Instagram that when you are connected spiritually, everything you think is a prayer. It is like a prayer. It is like a request. So if you are out here thinking, it ain't going to work, it ain't going to work, as strong as we are as spiritual beings, what do you think you're creating? The energy that you're creating. And we are human. And it takes time to transform from that to, I have one belief, and the belief that all things are working out for me. All things are working out for me. It happens. And what we are working on now is to break that down so that it's not happening as often as it may have been in the past. And so you're no longer seeing things as barriers. You're seeing boundaries. You're seeing change. You're seeing transformation. You're not running for mental distractions. Your mind is so wide open. You're like, like yesterday when I received my shirt. Y'all see my shirt? One of the very first, now your shirt may not look like this because I always cut my shirts. But when I received this shirt in the mail yesterday, the very first thing I did was I jumped up and I was like, I want to create something. So someone else creating this inspired me to also be creative because that was the mindset. Like if I see someone else being creative, it inspires me to want to be creative as well. And so I trust and I hope that as we continue to work every Sunday, and hopefully there'll be more intensive work to come. That is my request, that there will be more intensive work to come. We start to see a shift, that we don't see barriers. We see opportunities, because when you increase the opportunity, the possibilities also increase. And so now would be a good time to meditate. And part of the meditation that felt the best when we're talking about barriers is my mind is free. Oh my goodness. Even saying it doesn't always feel like the truth because my mind has been working overtime this past week. And what has been working overtime in is other people's thoughts. Well, what is so and so thinking? What is so and so doing? And instead of me just reaching out and asking, here I am using my mental energy, my power to create scenarios in my head that may or may not be true. Worrying. I had someone come to the house on Friday to give me a quote about something, and I immediately went into, oh gosh, I'm going to have to redo the whole house, like overboard. It's going to cost me thousands and thousands of dollars because if I do this thing, then I got to do that thing. And if I do that thing, that means I might as well just tear this wall down. Like, as Mama Ia calls it, awfulizing, just making a situation awful for no reason. And if that's where I put my time, attention, and focus on, then that will be my reality. But when my mind is free and I am hearing um, Denise Williams singing Free in my mind, which I'm probably going to play some Denise Williams when we're done. But when my mind is free, free from distractions, free from worry, free from doubt, where all things are an opportunity. And as A Course in Miracles says, that the problem and the solution are one. Can you wrap your mind around that? That the problem and the solution are the same daggone thing. It's all based on perspective and what you believe. So if you have a problem or a challenge, the solution is the same thing. It's just different energy. Same law of polarity, opposite ends of the poles of the spectrum, but the same energy. It all depends upon the perspective or the energy that you put onto it. Like I tell people all the time, that anxiety and excitement are the same thing. It all depends on how you perceive it. Because your body reacts in the same way when you're excited about something, when you're anxious about something. But then your mind and your emotions want to contribute and tell you what it is. Oh, that thing's going to hurt you. Versus, oh, that thing is going to be the best thing that you've ever experienced. So let's meditate on our minds being free. Ooh, what it would mean to have a free mind. What it would mean to not have my eyebrows do this. And so I get this line in the middle of my forehead because I'm overthinking. What it would mean to have the muscles in your face relaxed. As a massage therapist, I know that one of the strongest joints on our body is in our face, right here in your jaw. And we hold a lot of tension there. And so many massage therapists will start with the face unless someone asks us to do something different so we can try to gauge how tight are these muscles right here. Because if they really, really tight, that means there's some stress, some worry going on throughout the entire body. And so for me, as a massage therapist, when I would go here and it felt really tight, I'm like, oh, girl, you got your work cut out for you because we hold a lot of tension here. What it would mean for your mind to be free, to not worry, to not second guess, to not hey, beloved, how you doing? What it would mean for your mind. Now my mind is not free. What it would mean for your mind to be free from worry, from beliefs that life is hard, that life doesn't love you, that free from shame. You may have done or said something that can never be forgiven or can never be transformed. You know, one of the things that I noticed as of late is the belief, the core collective belief that people are beyond retribution. And if we get to that state of belief, then we will all be lost. God forbid anyone think that if I did something that is a measure of who I am and that forgiveness is not something that could be part of my life experience. Um, and it, depending upon who you are, sometimes we hear, oh, that's an unforgivable sin, unforgivable action, not something that I can live with. And it's different for all of us, but what would it feel like for your mind to be free of that? And so as we've been talking about barriers, but transforming and changing the language, I don't see barriers. I see experiences and opportunities because I'm going to figure it out. Because I'm co-creating with the divine. And I know that God would never lead me into a place, leave me alone, to have an experience of something that cannot be resolved. I don't believe that about God, and I'm not going to believe that about myself. That in this right now moment, my mind is free from the lies that I tell myself, from the lies that other people tell me, and then I believe, from the experiences of my youth that created a belief that I am now unlearning. My mind is free. My heart, connected to the mental, emotional, and spiritual energy within my body, is filtering out those things that are unnecessary. You know, our heart is a great filtration system, but could you even envision problems, challenges, experiences that you think cannot be cleansed, cannot be made whole? Could you imagine them going through your heart and also being filtered where the toxins are no longer within your body? Our cells, the cells in our body are so amazing, constantly working and fighting to ward off disease, viruses, and sometimes they succumb, but the body is so amazing that it will fight for you even when you can't fight for yourself. Imagine if you did that with your mind, that your mind became the very filtration system that allowed everything that you needed to come in and everything unnecessary to be filtered out. Our lungs, our lungs are a great filtration system. Here we are walking around breathing in toxic air and all the other energies that are toxic in our environment, and our lungs are like, yeah, no, you don't get to come into this body. You don't get to invade this sacred place. Imagine if we thought of our minds in the same way. Our lungs are doing work, our cells are doing work, our heart is doing work, our kidneys, all of these organs in the body that are natural filtration systems. At what point, as my prayer partner says, at what point are we going to transform that same principle to our brains, where our brains become the filtration system, where we get the mess out, where we're not seeing things as barriers, but we're seeing them as opportunities. Even the most challenging experience is an opportunity for you to see just how great and wonderful you are. But if you don't see it, then your filtration system can't work the way that it's supposed to work. It's going to let that stuff in, it's going to take root, and it's going to fester. And so, as we engage our filtration system, our lungs, our heart, and all of the organs, our cells, all of them showing us how it is to be done, intend with your heart right now that your brain becomes a filtration system, that it becomes a barrier, a beautiful boundary that is going to allow you to speak from a place of power, because you are allowing the things in that are necessary, and you are cleansing the things that are not. Mm. I hope you are breathing. I hope you are taking that in. I hope you tell yourself for the rest of the day that your mind is free, free from toxicity. Hmm. And that because my mind is free, my behaviors are going to start looking very different. The things that I do, the things that I don't do are going to start looking different, because I'm going to honor myself. If I say I no longer want to worry about money, then guess what? I'm not going to worry about money. I'm going to put my time, my attention, and my focus into the thing that I'm already doing. And I hope that that is not lost on anyone as I showed you my exercise. I hope it's not lost on you that you're already doing great and amazing work. That the very thing that you keep saying, one day I'm going to become, you already are on some level. And there's always an opportunity to grow when you believe that you can. I hope as you write in your journals this week that you also tell yourself the truth. If there are some mental distractions, and these could be people that you love like you ain't never loved nobody before, but if they are a mental distraction, you have to tell the truth. Tell the truth about why, because you might be contributing to that, but also tell the truth that you may be playing a particular part in someone's life that is not good for you. You might be the savior, you might be the protector, you might be whatever role you play. Tell the truth about it. It's like my baby sister calls me every time she needs money because she's not smart with her money. So if she's not smart with her money, she's not going to be smart with your money either. If she's not thoughtful about the relationships that she gets herself into, she may not be very thoughtful about the relationship that she has with you. And I don't know your sister, I'm sure she's a lovely person. But in order to get to the root of why particular things may not be happening in our lives, we have to tell the truth about all things that are happening in our lives. Doesn't mean you don't love people, doesn't mean that they're bad people. It means I have to tell the truth. And this isn't an exercise for you to project onto other people and make them the problem. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. The only thing that we have control over is our own thoughts, our own feelings, our own behaviors. Other people can impact us, absolutely, but ultimately the choice is yours. I hope my hip hop heads get that reference. The choice is yours. So I opened up my calendar. Whoop, whoop. I don't know if I put it in the description of this video. If I did, then if anyone wants to continue the conversation, get on the calendar. I believe that there's some dates for this week. If not, they will be, there might even be some dates for today. I think I have 1 hour today and then some hours on Wednesday and Thursday. Maybe not Wednesday. Um, If that does not work for you, you feel free to email me. Yes, I am still answering emails. I love y'all so much. And I have a lot of emails to go through. Some of them are out of order, and I'm trying to answer them in the order that I've received them. I'm not ignoring you. And I think I need to get into a practice of replying that I'm not ignoring you. Because I know what that feels like to reach out to someone and then you don't hear anything. Um, this week was a little busy because it was grandbaby girl's birthday party yesterday. Her actual birthday is tomorrow. She will be 4. And that is inspiring me um, to remember the commitment that I made when she was born to be the best version of myself possible so that she experiences love and does not have to carry the burden of the unhealed things that her family didn't do their work on. I do not want that grandbaby girl to have our stuff on her shoulders. So I have to continue to do my work. I want my children to continue to do their emotional work so that she does not have to carry the burden of our unhealed trauma. And so, for those of us who are in the experience right now of dealing with your family's unhealed trauma, I hope you take care of yourself this week. Again, I got my shirt because next week, the 21st, I don't like challenges, but I'm going to issue a challenge to each of us next week. I already got my shirt because I unapologetically have a big ass, which means that when I present my big ask next week, I can't do it like a punk. I have to believe in it. I have to stand in it. I have to make sure that I'm clear about what it is, trust that it's going to happen, and I can't be a punk. So, for those of you who are excited about next week, email me if there's something that you want to do and you feel like I am terrified. What do you think? Email me and we can talk about it, or click the link in the description to get on my calendar and we can have a talk about it. I love y'all. I really, really do. Today is a good day. Today is a beautiful day. Continue to enjoy yourselves. Continue to do your work. Continue to tell the truth about the mental barriers, emotional barriers, physical barriers, spiritual barriers that you have created. Because I'm here to tell you, if there is a barrier internally, it is a creation and function that you are responsible for. And I absolutely know that you have everything that you need to work through it. And it might take a long time. But if you do the work, continue the work, I'm telling you, I know you can. I know you can. I know I can, and I know I have. And so I continue to do my work, and I'm grateful to be doing the work with you. I love me. I love you. I love us, you wonderful spiritual friends. Continue to be good to yourselves. And next week, we're going to have fun. It's going to be fun. Even though I don't like to do it, doesn't mean that I'm not good at it, and doesn't mean that it's not going to be good for us. So Thank you so much for being here today. And I look forward to seeing y'all next week. Bye. Love you.